Hello, Secret Keepers. By the grace of some benevolent, omnipotent being, Joel is indisposed, recovering from an elective surgery to adorn his body with a prehensile tail. Never fear, dear Secret Keeper, for your ever vigilant and most favorite co host is here. I am here, and I am not alone. I am joined by one of the podcast besties, Kervin from 4Y Games, to chat about TCGs, the state of the clock app, and standing out in today's crowded marketplace of games as an indie publisher. That and so much more on today's episode of the Super Secret Podcast. I guess that's actually technically the Mega Moth Studios Super Secret Podcast. Shh, don't tell Joel about it. Welcome back to the show, Secret Keepers. I'm your host, getting used to my newly found power, Danny Ayub, joined fortuitously by my co-host for the day, Kervin. Sup, dog?
Sup, bruh?
What's going on?
Oh, just living my best TCG life, because apparently I'm a TCGer now.
Yep, that's how that works. My understanding is that there was a need for one more TCGer, so we drafted you from the board game space. How's it been treating you in TCG land?
Pretty amazing, actually. Like, I have an LGS, which is something I've always wanted.
Very
In
nice.
Houston, it's very hard, especially in my area of town. Found one. I have a little community there. I've gotten half of them to play Marsh Hollow, which is pretty exciting.
Nice.
They really like it. And yeah, I love going to League. And I have opinions about sleeves now, which is weird.
What are these opinions?
I prefer matte.
I prefer matte as well. I am a KMC Hyper Matte fanboy, but I will accept a Dragon's Shield matte sleeve. What about you? Where are you? What are you on? Are you on Team Katana?
I'm on team BCW sent me a bunch of sleeves, which is their new Iridian sleeves, and
yeah.
I adore them because
Sweet.
they work really well and they're matte, which I didn't know that until a friend gave me like a glossy sleeve, and I was like, ooh, I could never.
Oh, I know. Trying to like shuffle with glossy sleeves, it's just everything everywhere. But I do want to let people know that we will be talking more about TCGs on today's episode. We're also going to be talking about what's trending with TikTok, maybe even what's on TikTok, trending wise. And then what it's like right now vying for attention against every other game maker and, frankly, every other thing. But before we get into those awesome topics, I think it is time for the question of the week. Joel is always forcing us to ask really depressing questions to our guests. And so I thought I would take an opportunity to kind of mix it up, do something warm and fuzzy. So, Kervin, how do you think humans will go extinct and when?
I love how you decided to go warm and fuzzy with me because notoriously on Board Game TikTok, I'm the epitome of words of affirmation and warm and fuzzy.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
How we're gonna go extinct? Climate change, obviously. I think it's gonna be a massive tidal wave, maybe like a tectonic slip, shift,
Yeah.
something
Okay.
about the Mariana Trench,
Like it.
oil.
Titanic, maybe. Ocean Gate.
That'd be
Subway.
great.
Jared Fogle.
That'd be great. Something from the sky, maybe.
Ooh, asteroid.
Did you hear about the termite swarm in Baytown?
No, what's up?
Okay, so I was in Baytown this week for a fellow Lorcana players like housewarming party, and
Yep.
apparently once a year they have like a swarm. They call termites. Don't know if they're actually termites or like mayflies, but like hundreds of thousands of them will go at night and go to anywhere that has light. They'll go through your chimney. Like everyone has to turn off all the lights in their house, and even then they get into your house. It sounds like a horrible horror film. And my friends showed me pictures, and they're like, "Yeah, I was just chilling in bed and woke up to like flies everywhere."
Yeah, you know what? I actually do know what you're talking about. I used to live in LaPorte, and we did have that issue I mean, it felt like weeks where you just would just be swarmed by these things anytime you'd walk outside, especially if there was a light present. So, yeah, pretty horrifying.
No, thank you. I'll stick
Hmm.
to my land of sugar.
For me, I think we're probably going to go extinct by some sort of bird event. I'm guessing, have you seen The Birds by Alfred Hitchcock?
A very long time ago. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm expecting something like that, but more violence. You know, uh, I know there's a lot of controversy online as to whether or not birds are real, but I am here to tell you it doesn't matter whether they are real or not. They can still kill you and probably will. So that would be my answer. I'm going to go with birds for that one. But I think that the people at home should not keep their answers a secret. Let us know in the comments how and when you think that humanity will perish from the earth. And while you're at it, like and subscribe. I say for every subscriber we get, Joel will have to endure another unnecessary surgery to add more animal appendages to his body. All right.
I was going to say, I do know the head of human resources at the Omaha Zoo. Maybe we can get some like bird pecking.
I would be into that. In fact, maybe we can do some research and have Joel endure some bird pecking. He's got a thing with birds. He's not really on their good side right now, so I think they wouldn't have a problem with it. I certainly wouldn't have a problem with it, and I think we would learn some valuable things to help our species to survive as a whole. And if you ask me, that's a pretty good use for Joel. So,
Species.
species, go humanity. Oh, this is an unhinged episode already. I am doing my best and worst Joel impression simultaneously.
Ah, yes. I see it within you. It starts with a subtle urge. You tried to ignore it, but the call, it intensifies. Do not look away, kid. This is your moment. It is time to set your sights on new adventures in X, Seekers of Fortune. A quintessential two-player strategy card game filled to the brim with mystical challenges and unpredictable twists. As fortune seekers, race to claim 5 adventures by assembling the necessary leads to fulfill your quests. But who said it would be that simple? Throughout your quest, you and your rival will unearth ancient sites, perform staggering feats, and discover powerful relics for use in noble or ruthless ways. As you gather more experience, you will discover crafty combinations that will save your hide or sabotage the competition, leaving you with the prize. Remember, the line between a legendary explorer and a mere footnote in history is drawn by knowing when to press forwards or when it is time for cunning manipulations. It is time to answer the call. X marks the spot. Set forth and seek your fortune.
So let's get into it. TCGs, Kervin, you are someone who has only been a TCGer for less than a year. Is that how you would think of yourself?
7 months
7
ish.
months
If you
ish.
can even like call it that, because like I bought a starter deck in like December, January ish, and then started playing, and then it kind of gone from there. And it was like a fluke. It literally was just like I was at like Target and there was 2 starter decks left, one of each type, and I was like, I guess, and then they got me.
We're doing it now. Did those starter decks come with any randomized booster product? Did they give you like one booster pack with the
Yep,
starter?
it's one
Cool.
booster pack per starter. Yeah.
They got to give you a little taste of the lucky pools there.
I,
Do you
I was
remember?
laughing because I found some old footage of me opening. So we went to like another store and they had like 3 or 4 booster packs. I opened them, and as I was opening them, the first one I opened was an enchanted, which is like the super fancy foil rare ones. And I didn't know what it was, so I was just like, "Oh, that's cool," and I just like put it aside. And I was like, "Oh wait, that's a special one. I should be
That's a
happy
special.
about that."
How much is that card worth? Do you know?
It was like 100 back then. I think it's down to like 80 now, but it's my first one. I can't sell it.
That's awesome. And it was and who was on it?
It was an enchanted Sizu,
Sizu.
the
What is
dragon from Raya. Don't come for me for Lorcana lore. I'm not a lore
yes,
person. If
Sizu.
if Danny
Okay.
can attest to anything, I am not a lore
From
person.
Riot. Sizu was the water dragon?
Think so.
Yeah. I've seen that movie a couple times. It was good.
So once,
Yeah,
maybe.
it's decent. So here's my question for you. Now that you are a TCG player, tell us before you were a TCG player, like what was your perception of the TCG hobby and TCG players in
I was
general?
supposed to say nice things.
No, absolutely not. Only
No, I
honest
just
things. We are honest and unbiased here.
well, I feel like when you play like board games, right, and you spend time in FLGSs, there's like the TTRPG people who play like Dungeons and Dragons and those types of games. There's the board game people, and then there's like the TCGers. And I've always felt like the most intense of all the gamers were always just TCGers because they're always sleeving, they're always shuffling, they always have like the mats and the amount of smack talked during tables at from what I had perceived was pretty aggressive, which is like a lot because in board games we spend most of our time playing new games and having to learn rules, so talking smack isn't always like a thing, which don't get me wrong, I enjoy talking smack. It just seemed like there's just a billion cards and it just seemed like it was made up. It's like I have this card which does this, which does this, which does this, which means I beat you, infinite loop, I'll pay the one effectively, right? But and then I got into like Lorcana because the board game space, I was tired of playing games where themes might as well have been accounting. And there are all these people who were like, I would never play a board game where I didn't enjoy the theme. And I was like, well, I guess I won't be playing board games if that's what I decided to do. And then I took such a hard Lorcana turn, and I realized, especially at the beginning, like there's strategy of Lorcana, there's different styles of Lorcana. I used to say, or I still think that everyone in the board game hobby has like a perfect game for them.
Hmm.
Like board games are for everyone. And I'm kind of thinking now that like there's a TCG for everyone and there's a style of play for everyone. Because
Yeah.
I will never chase the meta. I'll never
Yeah.
spend thousands of dollars on a deck, but I will like find a weird mechanic and run with it. And
Hmm.
if there's anything I would use to describe like how I play Lorcana, it's just Kervin does what he wants, and which is like what I do on TikTok. So people shouldn't be too surprised.
I'm going to court a little controversy here. Of all the people who are playing Lorcana on TikTok right now that you've played with, who's the best technical player? It's okay to say Kervin.
I feel it's different though, right? So okay, hold on. So my understanding of technical player
Yeah.
is like it's someone who like actually relatively knows all of the cards, right? And what they do. That's part of it, right? Because
I
you can,
it could be part of it. I mean, I don't
like you
think
can,
it's necessary to know everything, but
but
understanding the
like
cards you're playing with, yes.
but generally speaking, there's not that many cards in Lorcana comparatively, right?
Correct. Yeah.
So like, and so being very familiar with I think there's like 5 sets now, 4 sets, and so like general idea, like there's people who like know their decks really well, but that just because you know your deck really well doesn't mean that you necessarily like do really well. Like there's a lot of people who I've met players who, so the meta deck right now, it's called an Emerald Steel Bucky deck, and they
Hmm.
spent all the money on this deck, but they have no idea how to play it, and they assume it's like because I play this deck, I will win every game, and that deck has really high difficulty to it. Like
Hmm.
it's expensive cards and high difficulty, and so if I were to pick a technical player, it's probably going to be Ready Set Inc.
Okay.
I've seen him play on like Pixelborn, RIP Pixelborn, but he used to stream it. He used to stream it, and like he plays lots of different styles. And I would say of everyone on like Lorcana talk, I would probably say him, or I would also say Chaos from Chaos and Confetti. There are
Okay.
these board gamers um, who also play Lorcana, and they go to League all the time, and they went to Atlanta, and I think he did pretty well. I don't know if he made day two, but I knew that like he played in side events, and they got enough tickets from the side events to get the promo cards they wanted. And whenever he talks about Lorcana, he very much knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really interesting concept there, which I think a lot of people don't realize, which is there's a difference between a deck being good and a deck being easy to pilot. and because in Magic we call it piloting a deck, or at least some factions within the Magic community do. And there are very, very competitive decks that will absolutely destroy the field, but you actually have to understand what you're doing, and they typically have strange interactions, and you kind of have to understand when to do certain things that aren't necessarily intuitive. So if you pour a bunch of money into one of those decks and show up and just try to play the cards out of your hand, you're gonna lose, and you're gonna wonder why this deck is so well rated. So it's interesting here that that's popping up in Lorcana. I understand that with Into the Inklands, the meta really got shaken up. It sounds like there was maybe a relatively narrow meta prior to Into the Inklands, and then with the introduction of Into the Inklands, the meta just kind of exploded in a couple different directions.
Yeah, I say this with eye rolls. I hate aggro decks. I hate
Yeah.
playing aggro decks. I hate like playing against aggro decks. You always have to have a plan, right? Like the first game I ever played with a member of Board Game TikTok, it was Sonia, and
Mhm.
we both don't play aggro and have never played aggro. And on 4 turns, the only card on the field was a popsicle, which is an item that lets you draw a card. In 4 turns, that was literally the only card. And we just started laughing, and she's like, "You don't play aggro, do you?" And I was like, "You don't either, apparently."
It was just a control mirror. You guys were just on
Well,
control.
kind of. We play similar styles, and similar colors as well. But yeah, so basically, we both play like variations of control, and we both had nothing to control with horrible hands. But yeah, so that was the meta prior to Inklands was very aggro, and then when Into the Inklands happened, there was definitely like a shift, especially the decks were getting a lot harder to um, pilot, I guess is how you put it. And it's funny because now we're into like Ursula's Revenge, and like aggro is slowly making a comeback, and people aren't used to playing against like other aggro decks. I remember the first time I went to a league, I was like a tournament, and I used to play a discard deck, and it was not one of the more popular decks, and there was one guy who had never played another discard deck, and I made him on turn 3 have 0 cards in his hand, and he's like, "This isn't fun." I was like, "No, playing against a discard deck is not fun,
No,
especially
absolutely not.
you're gonna start just top decking eventually because you both have discards, right?" But I thought that was funny. I was like, "How have you not played another discard deck?" And he didn't know how to play against his own style of deck. Like his deck was technically better than mine, but I've played against discard decks.
So you
So
didn't know how to handle the mirror.
correct.
Um, it's interesting. I I think discard is generally an unfun mechanic. We were very careful with X to limit the amount of discard, and generally, if we make someone discard, we try to like give them resources back, and make it more of just like your plan gets messed up more than it is you just lose resources, because in Magic it's long been known that resource denial leads to people just exiting the game, because you know either you destroy people's hands or you destroy their ability. In Magic, land destruction is a big thing, so it'd be like the equivalent of just getting rid of someone's ink. Can you do that? Can you get rid of all in Magic, there are cards that say destroy all lands. So imagine someone played a card that's just like get rid of all the ink, like it's kind of crazy. Um,
I feel like that
what
goes against the spirit of Disney.
I think it does. I
And I
think
would
it does.
riot. I would riot. Oh, in Magic, do you guys have like a starting phrase like attack like Beyblade is like let it rip and like Yu-Gi-Oh is like let's duel? Do you have a version of that in Magic?
Um, Good luck, have fun.
No one has fun playing Magic. If I've learned anything, Danny.
I would say like maybe player draw. You know,
Player draw.
Yeah, yeah. Because in Magic, you choose whether you want to go first or second, and play as first and draw as second. Because in Magic, if you go first, you don't draw a card on your first turn.
Lorcana is the same way.
Yeah, so that's where the player draw comes from. I'm curious, and we can swing back to Magic because I have a couple questions about Magic. But I did want to ask you how you feel about Pixelborn going away, and what do you think that signals to the Lorcana community?
I had a very long discussion with that with my with my fellow content creators Lorcana this weekend in Baytown, and we were on the same page, which is interesting because when Like they are very much like in like the heart of the Houston Lorcana community. Like they know all the stores and they've been there from the beginning. And so she said that if you're playing Pixelborn, you're not playing Lorcana. Like you're
Mm.
playing Pixelborn, which is something I absolutely agree with. Like, yes, you can use it to like test strategies, and yes, you can use it like for accessibility issues if you want to like try out new decks. But at the end of the day, like it's a card game to be played on a table. Like there are tournaments and like playing on Pixelborn, so many things and effects just happen for you. And when you are used to being like playing this card and then just like stuff happens, and then when you like have the same deck and you play it in person, it's very different. Your experience is different. And like, yes, it was like a really great tool, but ultimately, like the creators of Pixelborn, they knew that what they were doing was illegal. They knew that like eventually they would be asked to shut down. And they knew said from the beginning, the first time they're asked to be shut down, they're gonna shut down. And that's exactly what they did. Is that they shut it down after, and I think it was like 2, 3, 4 days ago it happened. But like I think it's a tool, but I don't necessarily think that like it's Lorcana the way Lorcana was meant to be played.
Yeah, I mean, there's some interesting ideas there. I think in Magic, we've talked about how people who come up playing on Magic Online or Magic Arena and then play their first time in paper don't realize that they are not strong technical players because they're used to having the computer manage all their triggers. And so then you sit down and it's like, when you're playing in paper, you're always just like trigger, 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 but on the line it's just like spoon feeding it to you. So I mean, I love playing online because I'm lazy, but it is a lazy play experience. So I think that it's fun, it's cool. I mean, I feel bad that Lorcana is going to be less accessible to people, just because even if you only want to play in paper, the amount that is you're able to play in paper is limited by who's in your area and everything like that. So I'm hoping that Disney puts out a client soon. I'm sure that they will, or Ravensburger, whoever's choice that is. Um, I would think that you wouldn't. If it were me, I would not put the kibosh on Pixelborn until I was ready to launch my own client, because I would still want people to have a way to come to the game and learn how to play the game. Because if I play on Pixelborn and I really get into it, I'm probably buying paper product sooner or later. So I think it's a good on ramp. One thing I wanted to ask you about, I'm on Facebook. I pay attention to some of the forums, and one of the forums I pay attention to is called TCG Collector. And one of the things that I've been reading on that forum is people saying that Lorcana is in a death spiral, and that it's going to die in short order, and that it's only been held up because of massive marketing money, but that sales of Ursula's Revenge are very, very poor. Is that your experience with it? Do you get the feeling on the ground that the game is in peril in some way, or do you feel like that's just collectors, speculators, looking for blood in the water, and they're maybe they're reporting real numbers, but it doesn't reflect the energy around the game?
I mean, could you have asked like a simpler question? No, like there's a lot of factors to it, right?
Yeah,
Like especially since I'm not in the TCG industry.
yeah,
Ugh.
yeah,
But like I will say, like I am definitely in the board game industry, right?
yeah,
And I have a lot of friends. I don't have a lot of friends. I know a lot of people who are like in retail,
yeah.
and being able to like hear things from retailers that like you normally wouldn't hear because people wouldn't post about it, right?
Hmm.
So like when Lorcana first started, product is a really big issue for set one. It's why didn't get into set one, because it was virtually impossible to get, and the product you were able to get was extremely marked up by like stores and like resellers or whatever. And then also, like Lorcana packs are more expensive than the other packs. Like I think
Mm.
it's like $6 or $7 for a booster pack,
For one
which
booster of Lorcana?
yeah.
Wow.
And so And not only that, like the margins aren't very good.
Mm.
At least from that's what I've heard, is that the margins aren't very good. And like it's bad when people were saying that like yeah, compared to board games have better margins, and I was like, oh, because you know how I feel about board game margins. So margins, and then accessibility, and then also it's just getting people to the store. Like there are a
Mm-hmm.
lot of people who like want to play Lorcana, but they don't have an FLGS,
Mm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
then FLGSs, like I mean, all the most of the LGSs in Houston are like up near you, but in
Yeah.
Houston proper, there's maybe three,
Mm-hmm.
which is crazy considering how big Houston is. Like having that tied to like an FLGS like and whether or not FLGSs do well, like it's up to the FLGS, right? So I think it's just a combination of a lot of things. Do I think it's going anywhere anytime soon? Uh I mean they have dates planned for the next like 3 or 4 sets. And I know that they're actively working on like those sets, and they just did a lore cast. So the last 2 sets, I think it's like 8 weeks out before they drop the new set, they do like a lore cast on Twitch where they basically do like a new animated trailer. They talk about the upcoming set, and I think there were a couple of thousand people. It was during the day also, and they were an hour delayed, but there were still people who were like super interested and super happy about it, and there are people who like called their FLGS and put in their pre-orders already, even though we're still trying to figure out Ursula's Revenge because they're preparing for the next one, which is Glimmering Skies. It's Glimmering something, but I I I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon, but whether or not it has staying power, I think it just depends on the community, right? And how important and or how well the like different like championships go. Because they have store championships now. We had one last set where you were able to win like an exclusive enchanted and exclusive mat. And then also just like the Atlanta, there's Chicago, Fort Worth is coming up. And I know a lot of people are going to Fort Worth, including a bunch of members of Board Game TikTok. And they seem to be getting a lot of like new people in the hobby. I, I think there's a possibility it might stay, but I mean, I hope it does. But if not, I mean, I'm sure there'll still be people I can play Lorcana with.
Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of a TCG is the games may come and go, but as long as you have your cards, you can still play the game. It's sad when you can't get more content, but I wanted to ask you um, a little bit about Magic and a little bit about X Seekers of Fortune. But because we have a lot we want to talk about, I'm actually going to ask for a little bit of help on this one. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, let's see, can we throw this one over to Emmy and Drew? And Emmy, Drew, do you think you could tell me what are the 5 things you're most wanting to see in the future from X Seekers of Fortune? We'll hang out here while y'all chat about that, and we'll pick it up from there.
Thanks, Danny. Yeah, I mean, we're really excited about X. We're in a unique position in that we get to kind of see some of the stuff a little early. So we've seen some of the things, but I think for me, the first thing I want to say is I want to see more of the world. I think the idea of the this world where everybody is sort of like finding these ancient treasures that's got kind of like a 1920s kind of like diesel punky kind of aesthetic. I think that's really cool. I would like to see like some of the places. I'd like to see a map of the world. I think that'd be really neat. How about you? I mean, what sorts of things? What are you looking forward to in the future of X? Either sort of like lore wise or mechanically or whatever.
Sure. So, lore and flavor wise, I'd like to see a little bit more of like a darker side to our characters. Right
Mm.
now, it's very good versus evil, and we have our very well established big bad and our 3 heroes. But I'd like to see a little darkness out of our 3 heroes and perhaps a redemption arc for the broker.
Oh, that would be interesting. I know the broker's up to some naughty stuff. I know his ultimate plan. I'm not going to tell all our friends at home what it is, but one day we'll find out. And it's pretty. I
Pretty
think it's yeah, it's pretty nefarious. He's a kind of an evil guy. I The other thing, so we've played a little bit of the multiplayer, and I got to tell you, the multiplayer is really fun.
Oh, it's super
And
fun.
we prototyped it a little bit, and I know that Danny and Joel are working on some new cards for some of the potential expansions that like expand how the game kind of what's the word for like scales with
Yep.
more people on the table.
And it
And
offers more of a sort of hero and narrative based play with the
yeah.
sort of what are the character cards called again?
Oh God, I've already
You
forgotten
know,
it.
the
And
ones that like vanish after 2 turns and then they have like an ultimate ability, but they are the characters from the series.
yeah, I don't know how top secret that is. I don't know. Like, I know that like this is something that they're playing with. They are like characters that we see and that they're that we know that are from the world that are important to the story, and they're really cool. And they do really neat things. And I really like sort of like the mechanical flavor that they lend to one another to like the game. So the idea like you really feel like that character is influencing sort of like the play. Like they're encouraging a particular style, like whether that's drawing leads or digging for more action X cards or stuff like that. Like I think that's I love that. I love the flavor that gives the gameplay that what they call it, like the ludo narrative dissonance.
Yeah, there you go.
So I am really excited about that. So uh, I, I I would love to see more of that, but I think moreover, I would like to see vehicles in a way. I
Oh,
mean, like some
okay.
like modes of transport and what that looks like in this world. I know that we've talked about some different ideas, like, hey, wouldn't it be neat if they instead did this or and again, I don't want to spoil too much. So I don't want to give stuff away. And again, like things are still very much like the world is growing and developing as it is. I love the idea that we've talked about this many times. The whole like monkeys are sort of like they're
Monkeys have
more intelligent.
jobs.
Monkeys have jobs. They're more intelligent than the monkeys on our world, and they're like trained to do stuff, and they're fun side. It would be good to see because right now we've kind of got like a your classic like Joker monkey. Like I mean like Trickster. He's he
Yes, he's like Abu from Aladdin.
yeah, which
He's
is like a
yeah.
classic sort of like trope. But it would be fun to see a monkey that like what if there was a monkey that was like just like a it was like a librarian or something like that, just like a real real
Like
a
the
real
monkey at the DMV, this very
yeah
like by the book, like spreadsheet monkey that
yeah
ends
yeah.
up maybe against his will, ends
Give
up
me
on a
some
grand
like
adventure.
some like diversity in the
The
monkey thought
monkeyverse.
space.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Um, I also like I've talked about this before. I'd love to see sort of like more diverse locations.
Hmm.
Like right now, again, most of this stuff is focused around like the Riverlands, which is like where
Yes.
Akaya is from, and there are a lot of secrets there. But like, what other secrets? Like, what's in like the mountains? What's under the polar ice caps? Like, there's got to be,
That's
like if
coming.
our yeah, like if our world is like an exciting sort of like parallel to this, like you got to know that the secret darkest parts of our world are only going to be amplified 1,000 times there.
Absolutely. And kind
Bottom
of
of
like
the ocean.
bottom of the I was about to say that. Like I want to see what the Grand Line looks like.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Where's the
really
One
want to
Piece?
see where, yeah, X marks the spot there. His treasure was all in one piece, and I really want to see someone become king of the pirates.
Yeah, I mean, like, I really would love to see like cool like submarines and stuff like that. I think that would be neat to just sort of like dive around and find cool treasure that's down there. But like more importantly, it would be cool to see some like more unique gameplay pieces. Like so far, again, like the base sets is the baseline, right? Like there aren't a
Mhm.
bazillion different card types, but as we're getting into more of the expansions, like more Action X cards that do unexpected and cool things. I pitched a card last session where it was like, wouldn't it be neat if you could do this? And that was like to try to maybe have a card that could like manipulate bonded leads that are on things. Like if you could swap
Yes.
to like disrupt your opponent's game plan or maybe benefit yours, or you steal a lead that's bonded on something and replace it with something from your hand, you know?
I also want to see some like super leads. Like right now, right? It's a 1-to-1. This card represents one glyph, one vision. What if we had a card that was like the sapphire of Eri Kai, and that was like represented 3 vision or something? Or you could exchange this card as like a note to get like 10 ruin, you know? Like, not to bring currency or an economy into it, because I feel like that's like a whole can of worms in board
Yeah.
game design, but like being able to, or like being able to like own the dig site at which the
Mm.
glyphs come from, so you have like an unlimited supply of glyphs. I'd just like to see something where it's more than just a 1-to-1, one lead is this one card. I'd just like to see more leads on a card.
There's a typical green player looking for ramp here. You want the soul ring of
Yes.
X Seekers of Fortune. I agree that would be pretty neat. I think the last thing I'll say is exploring what happens when 2 lead types come together,
Ooh,
right?
hybrid mana.
Yeah. So like, what
Yeah.
does a what does a ruin and a myth look like together, and what does that mean as sort of like a card identity and like an Action X card? Like that would be neat, and I think there's room for definitely some synergy there. So I think that would be really exciting. I think it's suffice to say, I think we're all really excited for the future of X. It is. It's coming soon. The Kickstarter is really doing super well. We're very excited. I'm not sure. God, I haven't checked the funding level, but like we're well. I think we're close to like the $15,000 mark, somewhere in the neighborhood thereof, and I think that's amazing. So. Danny, congratulations to you and Joel. We're really excited for the game. We look forward to more of the future. And back to you and the Super Secret podcast.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. That was informative. Sorry to do that in the middle of your episode, Kervin, but sometimes you don't have enough time to talk about everything you want to, so you get a little help from your friends. So
Emmy and Drew are really pretty. It's fine. I didn't have. They don't need my approval.
they're fantastic, and they're actually a perfect segue because Emmy and Drew have their own podcast, Wooburg Radio, Big in Magic. Great podcast if you're interested at all in learning about magic and hearing what's going on in magic. Highly recommend Wooburg Radio. But they're also big on TikTok, and TikTok's something else we wanted to talk about. Cora Pacan and Droko McSimic on TikTok. You should give them a follow if you don't already. Um, so, Kervin, tell me, what are your feelings about TikTok? I mean, we let's. I guess maybe we can start with the current events, right? We had Congress ban it, right?
Correct.
Do you think that's going to happen, or do you think someone's going to buy it?
I mean, I most focused on the timeline, right?
Mm.
Because the most pressing was because when they first like announced it, I think the timeline was like 9 months, or it was like 9 months, and that was about the time I wanted to launch Marsh Hollow, and I was just like, ugh, that would be like awful because my entire community is based like on TikTok, and then they shortened the amount of time, and then they being TikTok actively said that they would like sue if they were to pass it. It was passed, and currently the clock stopped, and so I'm expecting at least another year or two. Like, uh, negatively thinking, pessimist words, um, but eventually, a lot of content creators and myself think that like this app will go away, TikTok will go
Mm.
away, and when the next one comes up, like a lot of us are intending to just like flock over and start like building another community there. I'm on the fence. People are like, do you want to go to like YouTube? Do you want to do like Facebook? Do you want to do Instagram? And the biggest draw for TikTok for me, one of the biggest draws was that there wasn't really a community there. It was like it was very small when I started 3 years ago. There was like less than 12 content creators. And
Mhm.
so I really wanted to be part of like building and forming that community. And on the other platforms, those communities are already there. And trying to like not necessarily insert yourself, but like what if it's a community that like you don't click with or you don't necessarily want to be a part of. So I if TikTok does go away, my games will be out. Who knows? Who knows what the plan is? And I've told you after Marsh Hollow, I don't really know what's in the air for me and for 4Y games. There's games I want to design. There's games I want to pitch. But as far as like being a content creator, it's been a huge part of my life, and my life has been exponentially better because of it. Met tons of great people, and it's been like a wonderful 3 years. But I don't know. Content creation takes a huge part of your day, a huge part of your time. Maintaining relationships, watching other people's content. I spend a lot of time on TikTok,
Likewise. Hmm.
because I really enjoy it. But it's the combination of like, do you have the time, the energy, and getting through when you're burnt out or on the verge of being burnt out, and trying to proactively do that while still maintain. I think my view is very different now because I'm also like in the creator fund now,
Hmm.
and it is exponentially harder to get views now than like even just like 6 months ago. Like, uh, I still and the algorithm is wild. They're still pushing videos from April. Like
Really?
my two insurance videos are still getting like like between 1,000 and 2,000 views a day
Mm.
since April, and I think I've made $6 off of like my board game gaming Lorcana diversity content. But like 98% of all the money I made literally has come from those two videos that TikTok is still pushing to this day.
Wow,
And
that's crazy.
and I'm only trying to be part of the creator fund. You need 100,000 views like every 30 days, and I'm literally just trying to get the 100,000 views in order to like keep getting money off of those two videos. And once those stop getting pushed, I'll probably drop out of the creator fund. So
Wow.
'cause my intention was not to be in it for this long. I thought I'd get my $2 and leave. But
So, like, if you fall out of it, do you get put back into it the next time you have 100K month?
you have to reapply. So like when you
Oh
qualify,
wow,
you can just hit the button and then get approved again.
wow, wow. Yeah, the algorithm is wild. I do want to just say about TikTok going away. I I've spent, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. And I'm certainly more active on TikTok than any of them. The other ones are managed by other members of the Megamoth team. So I don't have the same firsthand experience on those platforms, but I am somewhat involved. And uh, I just don't feel like the communities are the same. It's not that I don't think that there are great people there. It's just there's something about TikTok where it just feels more intimate to me. Like I don't feel like Instagram or YouTube are intimate. I feel like YouTube is exciting and lots of crazy things are going on and it's big and whatever. I think Instagram is kind of like look at this and look at that and but TikTok really just to me feels like you're just hanging out with friends and there's a certain socialness to TikTok that I just don't get the vibe from on any other app. I think there's a reason why it's as popular as it is. I think you really become bonded to people, and I feel like it's way easier to get in front of people on TikTok than it is on Instagram or Facebook. Um, Certainly YouTube. So I don't know. I don't know what it holds, but I'm going to be really disappointed. I think if the community and the access to community just disappears and there's no good replacement for it. Um, I think for us, the best thing we've had is we've been building this Discord community on the side, and so a lot of our favorite people from TikTok are there. So there will be some way to continue on with those people outside of just the app. But yeah, it's disappointing to me to think that is in jeopardy, and we may not have a good replacement for it.
Oh,
Um,
I'll be bummed. Don't get me wrong. Like it's not like I'm just like, oh, I'm ready for it to go. Like, but I think it's also different when my whole game plan, my whole business model was based off of like getting my money back on my second game,
yes.
and I knew and like building a community and posting content. Like I've posted 1 to 4 videos every day for almost 3 years, and
Good.
not and the first year I refused to do trendy videos. I did not do lip syncs. I did not do pans. It was just me exclusively talking
Yeah.
because I wanted to be able to master in quotes. Calm down, calm down.
Sitting in a
I
car.
wanted, I wanted to be able to like have. There are people who I wanted to be able to like build a community of just like sharing my story because I feel like my point of view is very different and very unique, especially in the board gaming space. And it's weird to me that there are people today who think of me and don't think of my car.
Yeah, I don't
Like,
know what that's
because
all
majority of
about.
my TikToks for the first year and a half was just me in my car sweating in the Houston heat. Because even with the AC, it's just still way too hot. And like they joined like after they joined TikTok when I was in Massachusetts, and so
Mm,
they know more of the boyfriend content than the car content, which is wild.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean there was a season there where there was a lot of freeze drying content, a lot of autumn in New England content. It was a nice period. I liked it. Um,
I wanted to be basic for once in my life.
you did well. I
Thank
was
you.
impressed. I want to ask one more thing about TikTok before we move on.
Sure.
About the algorithm. What I mean, what the hell? Like, what is what does the algorithm care about right now? Like, what are they trying to accomplish with it? I mean, I get the need to constantly update the algorithm. If you've been on TikTok, you know that people will find something that performs well that isn't actually creating value. Usually, it's like they'll put like one of those Darman, is that what his name is? Darman videos, and then like somebody peeling soap with like a potato peeler, and then like it'll get a million views. I'm sure that TikTok doesn't want that on their platform. I think TikTok wants authentic, real content that provides value and perspective more so than just reposts. So, I mean, what do you? I mean, do you agree with that? Do you? What do you? I mean, where do you see the algorithm moving, and what's it prioritizing?
I 1000% agree with you. Like, there's no way when I first started TikTok, I was like, there's no way trendy videos like 7 second dance or 8 9 second dance videos are gonna be where the app wants to go
Right.
because like everyone wants to be YouTube. So I figured eventually they would go in that direction. That's one of the reasons why like my style became my style and my editing style. And it was funny when I first started, like my editing style came to be because my videos would always be over like a minute,
Mm-hmm.
like once they were done editing. And TikTok did not want videos under a minute. And now they want like you can upload up to an hour, I think.
Wow.
Which I was like, no one has the bandwidth on TikTok to pay attention for an hour.
It's not why
I
you're on the
think
app.
I think also there's just like there's like a fatigue to TikTok.
Yeah.
Like the longer you're on TikTok, the more like there's a ton of content out there, right? But there's only so much content that the For You page will determine like you will deem to be interesting, especially when you've been like on as long as we have, right? So I think that like just generally speaking, growing is exponentially harder even than like when you started because people are just so just used to just like swiping. Like I remember my most viral video right now, I think it's like 400,000 views
Mm-hmm.
right now. And if you look at the analytics, it makes zero sense because the if you look at your analytics, it'll tell you it's just like the first 5 seconds. It's like most people started swiping at like 1 second or 2 seconds, and they're like, try to make it eight. My most viral video, most people swiped on this on like the second, and there's no reason why. I mean, there's like reasons why you could, but like the analytics don't always make sense. I feel like TikTok of like will prioritize longer content. I think they'll prioritize like storytelling because that's what they want to be known for. And obviously like all the TikTok shop videos. Like
Yeah.
that's gonna forever be a thing as long as this app's gonna be here. Cause I life before TikTok shop was very different.
Oh, dramatically different. And I remember when it first started popping up, it was like you saw a couple people selling things and it felt like cool viral small business stories, and then like almost overnight, especially when the influencers started getting stuff sent to them for free, it just felt like QVC almost overnight. And I think that they've reeled it back a little bit. Like I think that I see a fair amount of TikTok shop content, but for a while there it was every video felt like it was a TikTok shop content video. I wanted to ask you, as we're talking about algorithms and attention, I thought maybe we could shift to the sort of the last part of this main topic conversation, which is, you know, you talked about how difficult it is to get attention on TikTok right now. I mean, I feel like that's true everywhere. I feel like it's doubly hard to get attention on Meta. And we're in the middle of our Kickstarter. We've been running a lot of ads on Meta, and Andy's been running a lot of content on Meta, and organic content, and it's just not getting seen the way it used to get seen. And it really feels like Meta increasingly is becoming a pay-to-play platform. Um, I want to ask you, why do you feel like things are getting so hard for getting views just generally across platforms? I mean, is this a shift in the way that these companies are doing business? Is it that the algorithms are finding content that's better than ours? Like, why is it so hard to get noticed now?
As like a content creator or like a publisher or
As a
just in general?
I think as a publisher more than as a content creator. But I'm sure it's the same for content creators.
Yeah. I think it's just the sheer influx of just ads in general, I think are making it just harder, right? Like I think back to like Kelp. Kelp is a game that was done by Wonderbro Games, which is based out of Germany. It's this wonderful two-player asymmetric game that I played at like Gen Con last year. Incredibly popular. They sold over 10,000 units, I believe. Like over $1 million Kickstarter campaign. But like they I laughed because I saw the episode she did with y'all, and she was like, people think that like we're like millionaires now and like we never have to work. But in order to like pull those numbers, like they had to drop a lot of money. Like a lot of money on like advertising, a lot of like money on partnerships, a lot of money on content creators. Like it takes a lot to do campaigns that huge. And I remember I'm not on Facebook very often. No surprise, because I'm always on TikTok. But like I remember seeing like those like advertisements for them, and I remember seeing like every couple weeks I would get the same one, and I remember asking her. I said like, I'm getting these like advertisements for your game. I don't want like your money to be wasted on me. Is there a way for like for me to interact with it in a way to where like it goes away? Because like I didn't want them to do that. She's like, well, kind of not really. And I remember that like they would slightly change, and part of their like strategy was to just like do campaigns, pique your interest, and eventually you'd get there. And that's like a lot of money in order to like pique your interest that many times, especially like on Facebook. So I feel like just in general, just the sheer amount of like other people like in your space, the board game industry has notoriously always had like, or at least as of late, just like thousands of games, and trying to figure out how to stand out, especially with like themes and like gameplay. I When I first started TikTok, I always said like people either connect with you or connect with your game, and connecting with your game is the easy part. And so I figured if I can try to figure out how to get people connect with me, maybe when things get exponentially harder, like I'll have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
And I think it was the right move
Yeah.
because I have this really great community who is super excited, and I talk just enough about Marsh Hollow where I'm actually sending out blind playtests next week while
Nice.
while I'm in Massachusetts because I felt like I need to be productive. And so this instruction manual is a lot. Art is kind of like exactly where we need it. And a lot of people have like offered to like blind play test the game, and a lot of people are still so they want to like play test it with me. And doing all this not at a convention, you know how I feel about that. If I can do it not at a convention, I won't do it. I'll absolutely do it because conventions are overwhelming.
They're extremely overwhelming, and we've got one right on our heels now. By the time people are listening to this, Origins will be in the rearview mirror, but Gen Con will be right up, and everyone's getting ready for Gen Con. That's going to be real chaotic.
Oh, that's right. You haven't even been to Gen Con yet.
This will
Yeah,
be
it's
my
gonna.
first Gen Con, yeah.
Oh, it's gonna be a lot.
Yeah, I know. And I can't imagine worse timing for Joel to get a prehensile tail. I mean, those crowds, that tail, oof, I wouldn't want to be him or anyone in that crowd for that matter.
Agreed.
Quick question for you. In this environment right now that we're talking about, who do you think is actually winning? Like, who are the people who are standing out? Is it just those with the deepest pockets? Is it people who just have really, really unusual games or product offerings? Who's winning?
If I'm honest, it's the big publishers.
Yeah, so it's just money.
No, but do you remember the last podcast we did? You asked me a question about I don't know what the question was about, but I said something along the lines of I was talking to people in the industry, and we talked about the board game renaissance and whether or not like we're still in it or whether or not it passed. And I had talked to someone who's like in the industry, and they said that like it's over and it's gonna be like exponentially harder for small publishers. She talked about how uh game like board games are just gonna move to deluxes. Big companies are just gonna use IPs, and like a lot like the bar to enter is slowly gonna be raised because of
Yeah,
competition, because of just all of the reasons. And I remember thinking, and I remember I said, I was like, maybe because like I'm just like in it, I don't believe it. And thinking about it now, I think she was right. Like, I kind of think she's right. Yeah, it's weird to think that like my view would change on that. And I think it's been like what 6 months, 8 months, but yeah, I think it has.
I think it's certainly possible, especially if it is going to be an environment where it's just about who can spend the most money on meta. I mean, even then, I'm not even sure because I mean we've spent a lot of money on meta, and I mean the sort of return we're getting for that money doesn't feel good. And again, I don't want to read too much into that. I think that we've struggled to do a good job messaging what our game is, and I think it's in part because it kind of goes right down the middle between two groups in a way that's great. Both groups should love the game and do love the game when they play it, generally speaking, but from the outside looking in, they both think it's for the other group and ignore it. So I think that maybe is what's really been holding us back, and hopefully, we find a way to break through that and really convince people that, regardless if you are a TCG player or a board game player, Executors of Fortune is a game that you'll probably enjoy playing. Um, I think that's about all I had with respect to the main topic. So, unless you had anything you wanted to add, we can move on to the lightning round if that piques your interest.
Anything I wanted to add? Huh? I think that's no. I think that's it.
Well, in that case, it's time for 8 to rate, underrated or overrated lightning round. This was not part of the show last time you were on. Joel's going to be super jealous because Joel loves doing these.
He
So
does.
here's how it's going to work. I'm going to give you 8 things to rate. Your job is to tell us whether they are either overrated or underrated, and briefly why. Are you ready for this?
Let's go.
All right, number 1, Joel as a co-host.
Normally rated.
Normally rated. Care to elaborate? Also, feels a little weak, but go ahead. Let's see what you got.
I think it depends on his mood and the guest, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Yeah. Okay. Number 2, your bromance with Ben.
Oh, it's underrated. People don't understand. Like
Underrated. Okay. All
people don't
right.
understand. It's like my boyfriend will never be on TikTok, and it's Pride Month, and so I was just like, and I remember thinking I was like, I've made videos talking about how like board game TikTok isn't as like it's not gay enough for me, and I'm
Yeah.
not the most flamboyant person in the world, so like. I was just like, I just need to figure out a way to make board game TikTok gayer. And then Ben happened, and I was just like, oh, I'm just gonna shove you everywhere. And
Yeah.
so I thought it was fair.
That works. That's a good advancement in making TikTok board game TikTok air. I like to hear that. Number 3, designing a roll slash flip and write.
Ugh.
I keep hearing the ooh, brother. Ooh.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, sorry. No, I don't mean to. I want to say, like, I'm gonna say overrated,
Okay.
only because people people think designing a roll and write is really easy, and yes, designing a roll and write is really easy, but designing a good one is not.
Yeah.
And like when you're limited by like paper and dice and writing utensil, or paper, cards, and a writing utensil. There's there's only so many options, and people believe that like the genre has been fully explored, and I don't think it has. And I think people think like anyone can design a party game, anyone can design a roll and write, but which is true, but that doesn't mean that they're good. And I feel like I think people like roll their eyes whenever people roll their eyes when I said I designed a party game, and I'm pretty sure they're gonna roll their eyes when I say I designed a flip and write. But I like it.
That's fine. They can roll their eyes.
They can.
That's fine. Roll their eyes, roll their dice, whatever. Pansit. Number 4, Pansit.
What are you saying?
Pansit.
Ponset?
Pansit.
Oh, underrated. People
Underrated.
don't. No, people. It's like I'm also biased because my mother makes the best ones I've ever had, and I've had it my entire life. And it's like the one besides lumpia. It's like the second dish people think of when they think of like Filipino food. And so there's like the thin noodles, which are like the vermicelli rice noodles, and then there's like the lo mein noodles, which are like the egg noodles. We think of like traditional stir fries. And my mom combines them both in like
Ooh.
the same pancit, and it's perfect.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Number 5, going on long hikes.
Overrated. Overrated. One thing, like I TikTok knows I'm gonna go see the boyfriend because I keep getting videos of like what it's like to interracial date my white boyfriend, and it's just like people complaining on hikes, and I was like, oh, TikTok knows. TikTok knows.
All right. Number 6, Omaha, Nebraska.
Underrated.
I agree with that. 100%. Omaha's really cool.
Like the best zoo in the country, more restaurants per square capita than any other city in the country. I did not drink in college. I ate my way around like when I turned 21. It was amazing. Like but some of the best Indian, Ethiopian, Moroccan, some of the best tacos I've ever had. Sorry, Houston.
Yeah.
In Omaha. And the best tres leches I've ever had was in Omaha.
Ooh, I love tres leches. That is my favorite cake. That was my groom's cake at my wedding, actually.
Ooh, that's fancy.
Yeah. Number 7, net decking.
Net decking?
Net decking.
No. Is that top decking?
No, so net decking is when you look at, so like if I was Lorcana and I was net decking, I would just find a list for the Bucky discard, Emerald Steel Bucky discard, and I would just be like, all right, that's the list. I'm going to run it. Net decking is just pulling lists offline, buying them, and going instead of building your own decks.
I'm not one to judge how people have fun, but overrated.
All right. Last one. Here we go. Number 8, sibling rivalries.
Adequately rated.
Adequately rated.
Especially when you're like the middle child. Like I'm one of 3, so like, and we're all extremely competitive. We all talk a lot of smack, and we're all, I've been told, very aggressive towards each other, and I just say that's how we communicate.
Well, there we have it. That has been the lightning round. Overrated, underrated, 8 to rate. Overrated, underrated lightning round. It is late. I am sorry. Words are not my friend at this hour, but we're doing our best, even though that Joel sold us down the river just so he can have a prehensile tail. And I'm never going to forget it or forgive it. So with that, I think we're going to move on here. And I have to do the thing that Joel does that I despise, which is ask you to subscribe to this podcast on YouTube. There's supposedly a bell that you're supposed to be ringing here so you can tell and be notified when the podcasts come out. Joel's always talking about ovens for some reason. I think that pertains to this. I'm not sure. And I'm also supposed to remind you that if you have friends that don't like YouTube but do like podcasts, let them know. We're also on Apple or Spotify or whatever your favorite podcasting app is, probably. And while you're at it, if you could leave us a review, 5 stars, if you're up to it, that would really help. And yeah, I think that's what Joel says. He takes a lot longer and it's a lot harder to listen to, but I think that's the gist. Anyway, that brings us to the final segment, which is something random. So, I don't know how we can do this particular idea I had, unless you have an idea, but I have a backup I'd like to give guests the opportunity to do something random. So if you have something random, we can randomly do it. But if not, I can wing it.
I did, but I realized like my brain isn't working, so mine would not work. When if we did this at like 7 a.m., it probably would have been a better something random. But we can do yours.
So do you see Wikipedia right now? Okay. So here's what we're going to do. Go ahead and we're going to do what we did the other day on TikTok Live with DG Walker. We're going to do a quick Wikipedia speed run. And the way this is going to work is you're going to name something random. Go ahead. Name whatever random thing you've got.
Goofy.
Goofy. Goofy. Okay, great. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to go onto Wikipedia, Wikipedia random, and they're going to randomly generate a page. And our job is going to be to get from the random page that they generate for us to Goofy in uh, 10 clicks or less. So here we go. So we're starting with Bruno Aguiar. Perfect. Okay. Let me just go ahead and get this on Wikipedia so that we're doing this in a normal way. Perfect. All right. Here we go. So we have to make it from Bruno to Goofy in less than 10 clicks. So how do you think we should start this? What are we looking for here?
Oh my god.
Let's see. I'm seeing a lot of soccer stuff, as you would expect. We could do something. Let's see. We've got Scotland here. Maybe we go Scotland and then see if we could find a famous Scotland person that we feel like would get us into like media. What are you thinking?
Go up to the top right in the year section. What is that? Are any of those English teams?
I don't think
I
so.
think I'm a little more chaotic than you.
What do you want to do? You tell me. You're the guest.
I would probably start with like farm team.
Farm team. Okay. All right. Let's do it. All right. So our first click was farm team. Ooh, we've got United States there. That's got to help.
See,
You want to do U.S. or we got MLB? We got the Yankees. We've got World War II.
World War II.
We've got New Zealand, South Africa.
Oh geez, it's all the options.
Here's an idea. Is Angels in the Outfield a Disney movie?
I have no idea.
No, we've got USA Network, WNE, NASCAR. Ooh, do you want to just go generic United States and see if we can get our way into Hollywood and see how quickly it takes us to get to Disney?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, we're going. Okay, second click is US. America. All right, here we go. And so now we need to see if we can find.
Can you like Control F Hollywood?
Well, that's considered
Is
cheating
it?
in this game. It is.
You have a
We
little
can do.
cortisone, the 1% of
No.
Mass media. Okay, here we go.
Let's see.
So we've got Fox. We've got National Broadcasting, Yahoo, Google, Amazon. There's theater. There's visual arts. There's music. There's fashion. There's cinema. I mean, certainly if we go major film studios, we're going to find Disney, right?
Yep.
Should we do it?
Do it.
Click 3 is major film studios, Walt Disney Studios. Shall we?
Do it.
4 is Walt Disney. And now let's see if we can find Goofy.
Go down to like the
Here.
90s.
A lot of stuff here. Is there like there's leaderships,
Is there like
live action?
Disney World or
There's Disney World, but I'm wondering here television, Muppets, Mary Poppins, Beauty and the Beast. '20th Century Animation, Walt Disney Animation Studios. What are you thinking? How do we get to Goofy from here? Um, I'm surprised that Mickey Mouse is not listed on
go to
the Disney
animation
page.
yeah, go to animation
Do they,
studios because that
okay.
like Rubber Hose is relatively old of a style. That's where Goofy first came in.
Okay, here's Steamboat Willie. Donald Duck Goofy.
Goofy.
There we go. We did it! That was like how many clicks? So we had Goofy. That was okay. So Goofy's 1, Animation 2, Studios 3, Major Film Studios 4, US 6, Farm Team 7, 8. We did it in 8 clicks. We did it. We won. That was fantastic.
Eat stuff. Do stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's late. We would maybe do another one of these on a day where it was not so late. But given that it is late, I think this has been more or less an episode that we can be happy with. So
You say it's more or less an episode, correct?
that is also true. Kervin, where do you want people to find you?
On TikTok, I'm 4ygames.flan.
4ygames.flan. Awesome. Well, you can find us at Megamoth Studios on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We're also X underscore seekers underscore of underscore fortune on Instagram. But that is basically it. We will be at Origins, but that's probably happened by the time you hear this. So look for us at Gen Con and, of course, online. This has been the Megamoth Studios Super Secret Podcast for this week. I would like to thank my co-host, Kervin. I have been Danny, reminding you that you must start somewhere. Okay, let me try that again. Well, let's do this one clean. I have been Danny, reminding you that you must start somewhere, so why not here without Joel? Thanks for listening. Theme music by James Hilton. Produced and edited by William Wymore. Future Prehensile Tail Tricks by Joel Watts.